Well, OSS, Owen says early.
Oscar says here before Grumps.
Oscar says that's how you know we're early, lol.
Now tap that screen. Tap it, tap that screen. Yeah, tap it. Gang Gremlins.
Gaga Grumps says Blossom in the house, thanks for doing your daily part.
Tap that screen. Yeah, tap it. Let's see those team stickers flow. Gang Gremlins on the scene.
Gaga Grumps says Oscar in the house.
Full of Sound says, is it true you're making this live 18 plus?
Now tap that screen.
And Omic Edit says me.
Gaga Grumps says welcome Gremlins to the game grotto. Take a seat, grab your daily heart, claim your points and prepare to
Gang
play.
Gremlins on the scene.
Gaga Grumps says no, only the 10 p.m. one.
Welcome Gremlins to the game grotto. Welcome Gremlins to the game grotto. Welcoming guys.
Gaga Grumps says welcome Gremlins to the game
Grab your
grotto.
heart,
Take a seat, grab your daily heart,
now
claim your
tap that
points and
screen,
prepare to
tap
play.
it, tap that screen, yeah, tap it. It's your warm-up routine. Gang Gremlins on the scene.
Oscar says, how do you plan to make it 18 plus? How does it work?
Gang Gremlins on the scene.
And Omic Edit says, wait, is this Gaga or Grumps?
Gaga Grumps says treasure box up if you need a coin for your daily
That
heart.
screen, yeah, tap it. Gang Gremlins come and let's go. Now tap that screen. Tap that screen, yeah, tap it. Let's see those team stickers flow. Gang Gremlins on the scene.
Gaga Grumps says it's a setting when I go live on Snap. I can set it to over 18s only and TikTok keeps the kid accounts out.
Now tap that screen. Now tap that screen. Gang Gremlins on the scene.
Gaga Grumps says because that's going to be an auto Wordle, hands-off game so I can just chat not host. It won't be all singing and dancing like this one. AN0MIK Edit says why are you switching at 18 plus anyway? BL0SSOM says that and 0mic_edits she just said.
BLOSSOM says Grumps is a bit late.
And Omic Edit says at BL0SS on 1.
Gaga Grumps says at the moment the 10 p.m. one is just me popping on to test new games and features.
Anna says wait you go live at 10 p.m.
Anna says since when?
And Omic Edits says, bore my hand is hurting I have been liking so much.
Gaga Grumps says like the new leg race I was testing last night before testing it here today. BL0SSOM says treasure box is open.
Oscar says Grumps has never been this late.
Oscar says I don't think.
Gaga Grumps says Grumps is doing customer service and will be in soon.
Anna says, why is your name Gaga and Grumps when Grumps doesn't play with you XX?
And Omic Edit says, what is customer service?
Oscar says at Albs you lucky duck Grumps ain't here.
Gaga Grumps says Grumps is part of the content.
BL Zerosum says lots of questions today ISNT there.
BL0SSOM says that CINQ it's on her videos shushes non-talking. Gaga Grumps says I am non-speaking. There is a pinned post on my page explaining.
Anomic Edit says at BL0SS on what do you mean?
Anna says has Grumps done a face reveal? XX. Gaga Grumps says no, he's quite anti-camera. He doesn't even let us take family pics much lol. Gaga Grumps says we haven't started yet pressed.
And Omic Edit says, what if has forced to take a family pic?
Thanks for the follow.
IDFWU says hi Gaga. How's your day, Queen?
Gaga Grumps says no, we have a special format for getting the first word. Wheel chooses the letter like race decides who gets the first word.
BL Some says it's sick no. That's a terrible word.
Oscar says at N0Mic_edits hell take it. Of course some people do not like being in photos or videos, that's okay.
Gaga Grumps says thanks for doing your heart Miano.
And Omic Edit says my finger hurts.
Gaga Grumps says IDF in the house.
BLOSSOM says at sync that's also bad.
And Omic Edit says that Gaga and Grumps, you're welcome.
IDFWU says where's Grumpy Grumps at Laughcree?
Gaga Grumps says okay, who's ready to Wordle with Gaga?
Oscar says at Grumps, you're finally here.
Anomic Edit says Grumps.
Benjamin is in the house.
BLOSSOM says at IDF it's chaotic with all the spamming and questions.
AN0MIK Edit says is here.
Oscar says a lot of lucky ducks
We would
say
be honored if you would join us.
Benjamin is in the house.
Gaga Grumps says creative in the house.
Sarah Not Saren says nice of you to show up Grumps. BLOSSOM says Grumps.
Benjamin is in the house.
Idflu says sorry I'm late lol.
Thanks for the
Gaga
We would
Grumps
be
says
honored
Seren in the house,
if
thanks
you
for
would
doing your
join
daily
us.
heart.
And Zero McEdit says, bro, what is a question?
Someone says, hey Gaga. AN0MIK edits says, also has the like race started.
The LOSSOM says I've pressed ever heard of patience. Use it.
LL Creative 1 says at IDFWU hi. Oscar says at Prestoni Grumskin. Gaga Grumps says Summer in the house, thanks for doing your daily heart.
Saren, not Saren, says it pressed.
Grumps says, welcome one, welcome all. Sometimes we need to lend our ear to a friend in need. Rejoice, him here.
And Omic Edit says, thank God, I have fast fingers.
IDFWU says at Grumps, finally lol.
Summer says at Grumps HELLOO.
Gaga Grumps says, are we ready to discover my new like race?
And Omic Edit says, YH.
Saren not Saren says, my gosh, everyone calm down, the game hasn't started lol.
Summer says at Gaga, and Grumps yes.
Gaga Grumps says, what letter will the wheel choose? Predictions in the chat now.
Summer says a 4 audio.
Grumps says at pressed you want to be moderated.
Oscar
Sure,
says
just
at
say how much
Grumps.
pain you'd like.
And Omic Edit says how you guys got level 14 and I got level 3.
IDFWU says at press, let's not act like that.
Saren not Saren says at Grumps.
Gaga Grumps says for some reason the wheel isn't showing. Give me a mo.
Saren not Saren says, at and 0 mic underscore edits because everyone spamming.
Summer says at N0MIK underscore edits cause loads of people commenting gotta give it a chance lol.
Thanks for the follow.
Grumps says at N0 mic underscore edits you have not paid for TTS Premium.
Gaga Grumps says kicking tickfinity.
Grumps says at Elahaya.
Will Creative One says, what letter did it choose?
Saren not Saren says there's a weird blank ID style card template next to your face. Do not sure if you see it.
Gaga Grumps says we are starting with A. I.
Grumps says at Ella juggling 5 things at once. Cannot complain cause no time to. Yourself.
AN0MIK edits says ingot.
Oscar says I was on the nose.
AN0MIK edits says number 1 let's go.
Summer says at Oscar.
Grumps says at Ella have to, else there is no dinner tonight, for starters.
Anomic Edit says, when is the like race starting?
Anomic Edit says, what grid?
Summer says at Ella it's the new like race.
Gaga Grumps says like race incoming. Tap those screens. Winner chooses the first word.
Like-a-thon, race to the top, like-a-thon, tap and don't stop, like-a-thon, who will be crowned, like-a-thon, gremlin renowned, like-a-thon, fingers on fire, like-a-thon, gremlins don't tire, like-a-thon, hearts be flying, like-a-thon, gremlins defying.
Gaga Grumps says want to steal the starting word. Send the ranking crown and snipe the list.
Anomic Edit says ISENT30 likes and IT said I was stuck on 60.
Gaga Grumps says your word starting with I please Paolo.
Summer says 573 and 60 cent, that's mad.
IDFW, you says I set 700 and not even on the board, that's mad.
AN0MIK edit says Apollo ACSW guess.
Gaga Grumps says yeah it's not counting any better than the old one. Summer says at Idfu. Gaga Grumps says shame. Gaga Grumps says icons you got.
Summer says at Alfie look at her pinned video.
And Edit says, why can the TTS speak slower than a snail? And then sometimes it's faster than a bullet train.
IDFW says at Alfie no, she has a pinned post.
Gaga Grumps says I am non-speaking. There is a pinned post on my page explaining. Gaga Grumps says a yellow S in need of a home.
Summer says sheep.
And Edit says S at 2nd Wordle Street.
And Edit says I'm telling you.
IDFW says Usher congrat.
Gaga Grumps says I wonder if we are being like throttled for some reason. I tried it connecting to a popular live SND, it counted way better than that. Gaga Grumps says don't spam.
The creative one says Surly.
And Edit says how do you connect it to a popular lice?
And Edit says live.
IDFW says let's be respectful.
Gaga Grumps says Surly you got.
Summer says why's Grumps so quiet today?
Summer says sheep.
And Edit says SIT1 Worky Street.
Gaga Grumps says we start with S.
And Edit says said IT before Grumps let's go.
Gaga Grumps says he's faffing in the kitchen now.
And Edit says oh.
Summer says at Gaga and Grumps okay.
IDFW says stake steam.
IDFW, you says at Alex60 let's not spam.
Summer says sheep.
And Edit says soaps never mend.
The creative one says Steam.
And Zero McEdit says soaps.
Gaga Grumps says Alex stop spamming. Once is enough and it only makes me not use your word.
Summer says sheep.
Gaga Grumps says sheep fits.
And Edit says if no, it's not Steam.
And Edit says if it's not steam, it's steak.
Gaga Grumps says no plurals in Wordle.
Summer says state.
IDFW says stage, Stave.
Summer says it can't be steam.
Summer says, or steak.
Summer
Charmaine
says
says steak.
And Omic Edit says at Summer are we risking another 2-letter again though?
Grumps says at.
Gaga Grumps says state is in the grid.
And Olmic Edit says what?
And oh, Mick Edit says hi, or do you do that?
Summer says that in 0MIK underscore edits, well, even if it wasn't stayed, we got the placement for the other letters.
Idflu says stage steak stave are the possibilities.
LL Creative One says kings. Gaga Grumps says vague to filter.
Grumps says at Blakey Celtic stop
IDFW
spamming.
says at Blakey Celtic you can leave or stop spamming.
Gaga Grumps says steak it is.
Summer says, oh my god, I just got so confused lol, I thought it was a double.
And Omic Edit says imagine if it was April Fool's again and the word is like sty.
It's playtime! Gaga is in the box! Don't let her lose!
Good game.
Grumps is on the buttons!
Gaga Grumps says
IDFW
GG
says I
Grumps.
really need to be a mod at this point. People are weird.
Good game. Good game.
Well, Creative One says it took 30 miss to get the first game.
Good game. Good game.
Gaga Grumps says tech issues created.
Good game. Good game.
And Omic Edit says this is second best song and word first is Wordle White Top.
AN0MIK Edit says Grumps, how much coins do you have? Gaga Grumps says do for Gaga. Share the live chat, and shower her with roses and GGs.
And Omic Edit says I don't have a single point.
Gaga Grumps says if you haven't done it yet, grab your daily heart while I set up the next grid.
Grumps says it and 0Mick underscore edits however much I load.
Gaga Grumps says let's play Wordle.
Summer says it in 0MIK underscore edit, it's alright, he will probs send Cooper and ranking crowns and a bit lol.
AN0MIK Edit says that SD4 RSM high. Gaga Grumps says oh new like race recognizes ranking crown immediately.
Grumps says at ST4 RSM Ahaya.
And Omic Edit says, wait, we've got Star Summer and Summer.
Benjamin is in the house!
Summer says oh no.
Gaga Grumps says what letter will the wheel choose? Predictions in the chat now.
Grump says at MZNF Heart Hands no.
Gaga Grump says Charmaine in the house thanks for doing your daily heart.
Grump says at Brady's Aviation Hire.
Summer says ye to Summers I might be off soon, though depends so might only be one.
Gaga Grump says we are starting with A. H.
My old says happy.
An Omic edit says BTW in the missed recnet that I sent a 5-word starting with every letter.
Gaga Grump says like race incoming. Tap those screens. Winner chooses the first word. Gaga Grump says want to steal the starting word. Send the ranking crown and snipe the list. Gaga Grump says I've given you the beat, now let's see your fingers dance. Gaga Grump says your word starting with H, please IDFR.
Grump says at Lily May 45565 higher. Grump says at HXRVE what?
We would be honored if you would join us.
It for says Hitch for Wipeout.
Someone says at Grumps, I keep checking using live, I hate this.
An Olmec edit says at Grumps it means like cool.
Benjamin is in the house.
Gaga Grump says Colin in the house thanks for doing your daily heart.
An Omic edit says in the house is the 3RD best music.
Grump says at Summer relax.
Summer says at Grumps I can't. Creative One says at Summer how can you see who is here?
An Olmec edit says Hitch Wipeout.
Gaga Grump says in the house isn't mine, it's just a sound on Tickfinity lol.
It's a Wordle wipeout. No letters to shout. Wipeout.
Summer says it has created one at the top right.
An Omic edit says Violet.
Gaga Grump says wipeouts in the chat.
An Omic edit says Wipeout.
An Omic edit says yeah.
An Olmec edit says yeah.
Grumps says at nothing again here.
IDFW says love it.
Summer says at HX, Avi give her a chance, she's non-speaking, so you have to be patient, she types in the chat.
Anomic Edit says, can there be a video of just the music for download?
Summer says at HXRV are not tough, get out.
Peanuts here!
Grumps says at Summer that's just top viewers, gifters and tappers.
Creative One says at Summer.
Anomic Edit says, how do you get the sticker?
Summer says at Grumps, yea, he taps.
Gaga Grumps says Grumps keeps threatening to publish all the songs.
Well, Creative One says prank.
IDFWU says no C.
Gaga Grumps says Candy fits.
Grumps says at Nicole, backup account higher. IDFWU says at Gaga and Grumps no C.
Summer says no C.
Anomic Edit says imagine double while out.
Gaga Grumps says we've had a triple wipeout before.
Anomic Edit says at HXRV nobody city boy.
Grumps says at _mic_edits I need to get around to publishing them properly.
Well, Creative One says prank.
Gaga Grumps says freak fits.
Anomic Edit says at Grumps K.
Grumps says at Finley Sheldon no, never.
Summer says I was gonna say no C, but TTS is slow, and I remembered there's a stop thing law.
Gaga Grumps says yellow R in need of a home.
IDFWU says Gloru.
Gaga Grumps says TTS turned off for everyone but me and Grumps for a while. Gaga Grumps says Glory works. Gaga Grumps says Y moved into number 5 and we found a Hameless G.
Grumps says oh, come on kids, fight, fight, fight. Handbags at dawn.
Gaga Grumps says rugby is a good shout. Gaga Grumps says GG Gremlins. Let's see those W's in the chat. Gaga Grumps says, do you do the daily Wordle? I post mine on my page and would love you to share your results.
Wordle with Gaga. Wordle with Gaga. Ra-da-da. Wordle with Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says, TTS back on.
Anomic Edit says okay.
Get it in 3. It's do or die. Only in 3. A pretty sky.
And Omic Edit says no afternoon.
Wordle with Gaga.
Summer says at handbags for wine is yellow.
Gaga Grumps says, this is crazy Wordle. If it's to slow you, there will be a faster game down the hall.
Grumps says at HXRV, you know. Work with me here, you do not have to be here.
And Omic Edit says at Gaga and Grumps, where is down the hall.
Grumps says at HANDBAGS4WHINERSOI.
Gaga Grumps says, Ryan in the house.
Summer says at HXRV, go piss someone else off, Jen.
Gaga Grumps says, plenty of other live hosts playing Wordle equals down the hall.
Grumps says at HXRV, good to know. AN0MIK Edits says at HXRV, I was born in the streets are.
And Omic Edit says it Gaga and Grumpso.
Summer says at HXRV, pretty much Gaga is telling you to get out.
Gaga Grumps says, if you haven't done it yet, grab your daily heart while I set up the next grid.
Thanks for the follow.
Gaga
Grumps
Grumps
says
says,
at Tilda
hi
Charlotte
Charlotte.
Tilda Heya.
Gaga Grumps says, TTS off for start. Gaga Grumps says, let's play Wordle. Gaga Grumps says, what letter will the wheel choose? Predictions in the chat now.
Grumps says at Sophia, no.
Thanks for the follow.
Gaga Grumps says we are starting with A. S. Gaga Grumps says like race incoming. Tap those screens. Winner chooses the first word.
Grumps says stop spamming. Guys, it gets you nothing but a mute.
Tapping don't stop like a thun. Who will be crowned like a thun? Gremlin renowned like a thun. Fingers on fire like a thun. Gremlins don't tire like a thun. Hearts be flying like a thun. Gremlins defying.
Gaga Grumps says want to steal the starting word. Send the ranking crown and snipe the list. Gaga Grumps says your word starting with S please Ryan.
Grumps says at Brit Mango yo.
Gaga Grumps says I'm gonna remove the count lol.
Grumps says at LFC for life. Shush.
Gaga Grumps says shaky you got.
Grumps says at
We
Brit
would be
Mango, that's
honored
what they all say.
if you would join us.
Oscar says at Brit Mango, how does it work?
IDFW says, let's not say words unless we're handbags. Anomic Edit says wipe out.
Jimmy says hello there Gaga and hello there Grumps.
Anomic Edit says PSAM Wipeout.
Gaga Grumps says wipeouts in the chat. IDFWU says wipeout.
Oscar says at LFC for life. Oh, you fed up.
And Almec Edits says Gaga is a 45-letter lake in Webster, Massachusetts.
Grumps says at LFC for life. You are the frack outta here, silly boy.
Gaga Grumps says Jimmy in the house thanks for doing your daily heart.
Summer says at Grumps.
Grumps says at FOFOSTAR heart hands hair.
Jimmy says at Gaga, and Grumps, you're most welcome, Gaga.
Grumps says at HANDBAGS4WHINERS.
Anomic Edit says at handbags for whiners geometry dash reference.
Grumps says at summer.
A creative one says fluid.
Eggs and bacon says prone.
Anomic EDIDS says Longfairpog Longley is a 54-letter village in Wales.
Gaga Grumps says fluid fits.
Summer says at Grumps it was close to being a full audio. How do you feel?
Grumps says at Jimmy hey there.
Gaga Grumps says yellow I and D in need of homes.
The creative one says digit.
Gaga Grumps says TTS back off.
Good game. Good game. Good game.
Grumps says it ill creative one I cannot be fourth.
Good game. Good game.
Gaga Grumps says dryer works.
Good game. Good game.
Grumps says that Summer Shush has got me in here life.
Good
How could it be
game.
anything but glorious?
Good game.
Welcome, Gremlin, to the game ground.
Good game.
Welcome, Gremlin.
Gaga Grumps says well that's sorts
Good
that
game.
Welcome in, guys.
Good
Settle
game.
down. Grab your heartbeat. Share us round.
Good game.
Now tap that screen. Tap it, tap it. Tap that screen. Yeah, tap
Good
it,
game.
tap it. It's
Gaga
your
Grumps says welcome gremlins to the game block.
Good game.
Take a seat, grab your daily heart, claim your
Good game.
points and prepare to play.
Game Gremlins on the scene.
Good game.
Game Gremlins on the
Good
scene.
game.
Grumps says it in zero Mick underscore edit doesn't know
Good
what
game.
arse are you waffling in about.
Good game.
Now tap that screen. Tap it, tap it. Tap that screen. Yeah,
Gaga
tap it,
Grumps
tap
says
it.
thanks for all
Game
the
Gremlins
GGs, Jim.
come, let's go. Now tap that screen. Tap it, tap it. Tap that screen. Yeah, tap it, tap it. Let's see those team stickers flow. Oh, oh. Game Gremlins on the scene. Oh, oh. Now tap that screen. Oh, oh, oh.
Thanks for the follow.
Now tap that screen.
Gaga Grumps says treasure box up if you need a coin for your daily heart.
Gang Gremlins on the scene.
Gaga Grumps says if you haven't done it yet, grab your daily heart while I set up the next grid. Gaga Grumps says this is Wordle with Gaga, what do you think, lol? Gaga Grumps says let's play Wordle.
No audio, Gaga. No,
Gaga Grumps says okay, you got one.
no audio, Gaga. No audio, Gaga. People drop them in the chat. Think they're clever, but they ain't all that. All we cheer is no audio, Gaga. No ad you either. No audio, Gaga. All those vowels are to blame. Extra guesses, risk losing the game. All we cheer is no audio, Gaga. No ad you either. No audio, Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says let's play Wordle. Gaga Grumps says what letter will the wheel choose? Predictions in the chat now. Gaga Grumps says we are starting with A. C.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Grumps says at summer it's an intelligence test disguised as song. Gaga Grumps says like race incoming. Tap those screens. Winner chooses the first word. Gaga Grumps says want to steal the starting word. Send the ranking crown and snipe the list. Gaga Grumps says I've given you the beat, now let's see your fingers dance.
Everybody get down! It's a freaking sniper! Ha ha!
Ha ha! Gaga Grumps says and Grumps sweeps in and steals the crown. Gaga Grumps says your word starting with C, please Grumps.
Grumps says crass for wipeout.
Gaga Grumps says crass you got.
Grumps says FFS.
Gaga Grumps says wipeout denied yellow R and are in need of homes. Summer says razor. Gaga Grumps says TTS back on.
Exan Bacon says raver.
Exan Bacon says audio.
Gaga Grumps says raver fits.
And Omic Edit says Grumps, when are you doing treasure chest again?
Exan Bacon says audio fits.
Summer says at X and back and no are in audio.
Gaga Grumps says I moved into number 2 Wordle Street.
And Omic Edit says at summer audio.
Gaga Grumps says I do treasure chest when I play the Welcome to Grotto song.
Oh Creative One says Larky.
Gaga Grumps says which depends on fireworks and stuff lol.
Summer says at N0MIK_edits well done.
We would be honored if you would
Gaga
join
Grumps
us.
says Baron works.
Fireworks for Gaga.
And Omic Edits says I got to go.
Explode 'em on her face. She's in a happy place. Fireworks for Gaga. Wordle within 3, so gifts explode with glee. Fireworks for Gaga. Emojis make her happy. As in her face they slappy. Fireworks for Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says Wordle in Korean. Let's see those fireworks in the chat.
Anything will be okay. If you can, that's okay. Smiley face.
Gaga Grumps says GG Gremlins. Let's see those W's in the chat.
Grumps says it number 180K.
Fireworks for Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says if you haven't done it yet, grab your daily heart while I set up the next grid.
Benjamin is in the house.
IDFW says that was lucky.
Gaga Grumps says D in the house, thanks for doing your daily heart. Gaga Grumps says let's play Wordle. Gaga Grumps says what letter will the wheel choose? Predictions in the chat now.
And Omic Edit says, should I make a Gaga and Grumps said it?
Gaga Grumps says if you want lol. Gaga Grumps says we are starting with A. Z. Gaga Grumps says like race incoming. Tap those screens. Winner chooses the first word.
Like a thon, race to the top. Like a thon, tap and don't stop. Like a thon, who will be crowned? Like a thon, gremlin renowned. Like a thon, fingers on fire. Like a thon.
Gaga Grumps says want to steal the starting word. Send the ranking crown and snipe the list.
Like
Gaga Grumps says I've given you the beat, now let's see your fingers dance.
Exan Bacon says, snipe incoming, get down.
Gaga Grumps says your word starting with Z please IDF.
And Olmec Edit says my fingers move and groove and I get one, but then when someone presses once, 67 million.
IDFW says Zanzo for wipeout.
Gaga Grumps says wow Zanza you got. AN0MIK Edits says I got to go.
And Olmec Edit says goodbye.
Gaga Grumps says 2 yellow is in need of homes.
Grumps says wipeout. Denied.
Gaga Grumps says see you soon Eno.
Grumps says it and 0mic_edits laters.
Gaga Grumps says oral fits. Don't spam. Gaga Grumps says surprisingly we start with A. IDFW says Ord.
Exan Bacon says Arabs.
Gaga Grumps says award works.
Fireworks for Gaga. It's summer for Miss Amy. Explode 'em on her face. She's in a happy place. Fireworks for Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says Wordle in 3. Let's see those fireworks in the chat.
Emojis make her happy. As in her face they slappy. Fireworks for Gaga. Fireworks for Gaga. From a single rose.
IDFW says that was lucky.
Anything will be okay. If you can, that's okay. Smileys in chat still win the day. Fireworks for Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says GG Gremlins. Let's see those W's in the chat.
Fireworks for Gaga.
Go green.
Gaga Grumps says 50-50.
Go green.
Gaga Grumps says if you haven't done it yet, grab your daily heart while I set up the next grid.
Summer says at Exan Bacon it's not all green though, is it?
Eggs and Bacon says at Summer Shush.
Go green.
Grumps says I hadn't noticed it spoke.
Gaga Grumps says how do you feel about the odd, not every, like race where you can boost your taps with 1 coin gifts?
Grumps says at HANDBAGS4WHINERS not by me.
Gaga Grumps says okay cats lol. Gaga Grumps says let's play Wordle.
IDFW says I love it.
Thanks for the follow.
Summer says at Cats for Life hold it down and press not interested ain't hard.
IDFW says at Safi, let's not do that.
Grumps says at Cats for Life you don't know how this works, do you?
Gaga Grumps says what letter will the wheel choose? Predictions
Grumps
in the
says
chat
at Sophie
now.
Pinkheart stop spamming.
Summer says Grumps, how long did you mute him for?
Gaga Grumps says we are starting with A. J. Gaga Grumps says like race incoming. Tap those screens. Winner chooses the first word.
Like a thong, race to the top, like a thon. Tap and don't stop, like a thon. Who will
Grumps
be
says mutes are handed out in
like a
homeopathic
thon?
doses.
Gremlin renowned, like a thon. Fingers on fire, like a thon. Gremlins don't tire, like a thon. Hearts beat flying, like a thon. Gremlins defying.
Gaga Grumps says want to steal the starting word. Send the ranking crown and snipe the list.
Grumps says at Anna that's how one ends up with a broken phone.
Gaga Grumps says I've given you the beat now let's see your fingers dance. Gaga Grumps says your word starting with J please IDF. Gaga Grumps says lol still trying. Gaga Grump says wipeouts in the chat.
Grump says at last.
Gaga Grump says prone fits. Gaga Grump says a green R moved into number 2 and E is homeless. Gaga Grump says erect works. Gaga Grump says no change 8 letters wiped from the game.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Gaga Grump says E lives at number 4.
Benjamin is in the house.
Gaga Grump says Crystal in the house thanks for doing your daily heart.
Grump says that eggs and bacon assumptions are commonly wrong.
Gaga Grump says brief is in the grid.
Grump says it Crystal welcome back.
Gaga Grump says not grief either.
Peanuts here.
Grump says it eggs and bacon what?
Gaga Grump says danger zone. What are our options? Gaga Grump says dry armed. Gaga Grump says array is with a not E, isn't it?
It's playtime!
Grumps says it Jordan first. There's one guess left.
Don't let her lose! Grumps is on the buttons!
Good game.
Don't let him push yours! Are you ready to play? Let those stickers fly!
Gaga Grumps says today's masterclass in filter work.
Are you on? Team Gaga, give a cheer. Team Grumps, are you here? Team Gaga, are you ready? Team Grumps, are you steady? Game! Gremlins, let's go!
Gaga Grumps says GG Gremlins. Let's see those W's in the chat.
Team Gaga, 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 Team Gaga, give a cheer. Team Grumps, are you here? Team Gaga, are you ready? Team Grumps, are you steady? Game! Gremlins, let's go! Game!
Gaga Grumps says yeah, the power of the White Hat doesn't really work when you type it that obviously loads.
Game! Gremlins, let's go!
Grumps says at IDFW you wanted a woe. You got a woe, no complaining now.
Gaga Grumps says do the do for Gaga. Share the live chat, the chat, and shower her with roses and GGs. Gaga Grumps says if you haven't done it yet, grab your daily heart while I set up the next grid.
Grumps says at HANDBAGS4WHINERS playing a blinder anyway.
Gaga Grumps says let's play Wordle.
Thanks for the follow!
Gaga Grumps says what letter will the wheel choose? Predictions in the chat now.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Benjamin is in the house!
Gaga Grumps says we are starting with A. H. Gaga Grumps says Hannah in the house, thanks for doing your daily heart. Gaga Grumps says this race will accept 1 C gifts equals 5 taps. Gaga Grumps says double tap the song button roll. Gaga Grumps says want to steal the starting word. Send the ranking crown and snipe the list.
Grumps says it's summer, oh dear.
Gaga Grumps says your word starting with H please Ryan.
Grumps says someone stole all my spaghetti.
Gaga Grumps says wipeout denied. Gaga Grumps says snowy fits. Gaga Grumps says N lives at number 20 still homeless.
Summer says envoy.
Crystal says V or just.
Gaga Grumps says enjoy works.
Grumps says that some of you know it.
DVP says annoy.
LL Creative 1 says annoy.
Wordle with Gaga. Wordle with Gaga. Will the
Crystal says shite.
A random star chosen by fate. Play a part, it's a live date.
good game?
Wordle with Gaga. Wordle with Gaga. Wordle with Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says annoy for Wordle in 4.
Grumps says it tilde, else tilde in a rush.
Get it in 3. It's do or die. Only in 3. A pretty sky.
Gaga Grumps says GG Gremlins. Let's see those W's in the chat.
Crystal says annoyed with that puzzle.
Wordle with Gaga. Wordle with Gaga.
Gaga Grumps says he's just oh dear about his spaghetti. Like we don't have other pastas in the house lol. Gaga Grumps says lol Crystal.
Grumps says at Gaga and Grumps you complain when sugo is served with non-spaghetti.
Gaga Grumps says TTS just refuses to work, I have to keep it off.
Grumps says at Nema 188 calm down.
Gaga Grumps says let's play Wordle.
Good game.
Gaga Grumps says what letter will the wheel choose? Predictions in the chat now.
Grumps says at Crystal someone raided my kitchen cupboard and stole it all. Kids, what have them? Grumps says at Tilly no.
Gaga Grumps says we are starting with A. C.
Grumps says it Crystal.
Gaga Grumps says D and Crystal won the nose.
Shout! It's Cooper! Shine, 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 da, 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 shine, shine. It's Cooper! Shine, shine, da, 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 da.
Grumps says it B tilde B tilde P O yes.
Wiggle butt, just a little mud with the
Gaga Grumps says coins don't work on this race. Taps and sniping crown only.
Don't you know? His name is Cooper, watch him go! Wiggle butt, just a little mud with a wiggle butt. Gremlins say what, with a wiggle butt. Wiggle butt, just a little mud with a wiggle butt. Gremlins say what, with a wiggle butt. Cute and fluffy puffball tail, Cooper, Cooper, we do, yeah. Wiggle butt, just a little mud with a wiggle butt. Gremlins say what, with a wiggle butt.
Gaga Grumps says but first it's Cooper time.
Grumps says that Summer TT is so stingy with available slots for custom stickers.
Gaga Grumps says thanks for the wiggles. Gaga Grumps says like race incoming. Tap those screens. Winner chooses the first word.
Like a thon, race to the top, like a thon. Tap and don't stop, like a thon. Who will be crowned like a thon? Gremlin renowned, like a thon.
Grumps says at Anna if you win the line race.
Gremlins don't tire, like a thon. Hearts beat flying, like a thon. Gremlins defying.
Grumps says at Anna line.
Everybody get down! It's a freaking
Gaga Grumps says want to steal the starting word. Send the ranking crown and snipe the list.
Everybody get down! It's a freaking sniper!
Gaga Grumps says Crystal won the race. Grumps gets next game. Gaga Grumps says your word starting with C please Crystal. Gaga Grumps says Corgi you got.
Grumps says at HANDBAGS4WHINERS yeah. Grumps says at HANDBAGS4WHINERS eats dog out there.
Gaga Grumps says a yellow eye in need of a home. Gaga Grumps says Flick fits. Gaga Grumps says no it doesn't.
Grumps says at HANDBAGS4WHINERS that's more than Gaga does.
Gaga Grumps says Flint as though lol. Gaga Grumps says hey hope long time no see.
Grumps says at higher.
Gaga Grumps says think words. Gaga Grumps says twine for Wordle in 4. Gaga Grumps says I was not expecting that. Gaga Grumps says goddamn the plurals in this one.
Grumps says not twink.
Gaga Grumps says I'll be glad when my own Wordle is ready lol.
Grumps says cannot have any innuendo.
Welcome, Gremlin, to the Game Grotto.
Thanks for the
Gaga
follow.
Grumps says GG Gremlins. Let's see those W's in the chat.
Welcome in, guys. Settle down. Grab your heartbeat. Share us round. Now tap that screen. Tap it,
Gaga
tap it,
Grumps
tap
says
that
welcome
screen. Yeah,
Gremlins
tap
to
it,
the Game
tap it.
Grotto.
It's your
Take a seat,
routine.
grab your daily heart, claim your points and
Game
prepare to
Gremlins
play.
on the scene. Good game. Game Gremlins on the scene. Good game. Game Gremlins on the scene. Good game.
Gaga Grumps says treasure box up if you need a coin for your daily heart.
Good game. Good game. Now tap that screen. Tap it, tap it, tap that screen. Yeah, tap it, tap it. Good game. Game Gremlins, come and let's go. Now tap that screen.
Gaga Grumps says if you haven't done it yet, grab your daily heart while I set up the next
Those
list.
team stickers flow. Game Gremlins on the scene. Now tap that screen.
Gaga Grumps says I shall add Ebola to my database just for Grumps lol.
Now tap that screen. Game Gremlins on the scene.
Gaga Grumps says let's play Wordle. Gaga Grumps says what letter will the wheel choose? Predictions in the chat now.
No audio.
Gaga Grumps says we are starting with A.
No audio. Gaga. No audio. Gaga. People drop them in the chat. Think they're clever, but they ain't all that.
Grumps says that HANDBAGS4WHINERS doesn't accept it.
No as you either. No audio. Gaga. All those vowels are to blame. Extra guesses. Risk losing the game. All we cheer is no audio. Gaga. No as you either.
Grumps says it's on the good. Let that be a lesson.
Gaga Grumps says and for his last snipe crown that got sniped by Crystal's crown. Your word starting with a please Grumps.
Grumps says oh. Grumps says audio.
Gaga Grumps says git.
It's a Wordle wipeout. No letters to shout.
Gaga Grumps says wipeouts in the chat.
Lost in the grid, can't figure it out.
Grumps says perfect.
Oh no.
Grumps says at bloody ruling class and their privilege.
Gaga Grumps says we don't. Grumps decided to be a git. Gaga Grumps says shyly FITD. Gaga Grumps says it's a double.
Lost in the grid, can't figure it out. Oh no.
Grumps says at Lily yes.
Gaga Grumps says Leverworks.
Grumps says catch. Grumps says an air trap to round it out.
Gaga Grumps says and it's an air trap, it just gets better. Gaga Grumps says enter is in the grid.
Good game. It's playtime!
Gaga Grumps says and as usual a double wipeout equals Wordle in 4.
Grumps is on the buttons! Don't let him push yours!
Gaga Grumps says okay, quick last game coming up.
Which team are you on? Team
Gaga Grumps says Grumps had a snipe and decided to be a hypocritical dickroll.
Game! Gremlins, let's go! Game! Gremlins, let's go!
Gaga Grumps says if you haven't done it yet, grab your daily heart while I set up the next grid. Gaga Grumps says let's play Wordle. Gaga Grumps says I can, but it's in the wheel and the light races hands. Gaga Grumps says what letter will the wheel choose? Predictions in the chat now. Gaga Grumps says we are starting with A. M. Gaga Grumps says like race incoming. Tap those screens. Winner chooses the first word. Gaga Grumps says bye summer, thanks for coming XX. Gaga Grumps says and bye from Grumps. H is on the phone.
Like a thumb, race to the top, like a thon. Tap and don't stop, like a thon. Who will be crowned like a thon? Gremlin renowned, like a thon. Fingers on fire, like a thon.
Gaga Grumps says want to steal the starting word. Send the ranking crown and snipe the list. Gaga Grumps says will do. Gaga Grumps says I've given you the beat, now let's see your fingers dance.
Thanks for the follow!
Gaga Grumps says your word starting with M, please Ryan. Gaga Grumps says thanks for the go pops Jimmy. Gaga Grumps says maybe you got. Gaga Grumps says a yellow A in need of a home. Gaga Grumps says no plurals in Wordle. Gaga Grumps says no creative, they must have been filter. Gaga Grumps says we added homeless O and L. Gaga Grumps says no plurals. Gaga Grumps says allowed works. Gaga Grumps says along is a shout. Gaga Grumps says danger zone. All options in chat.
Grumps says it's summer laters.
Gaga Grumps says aloof and aloft are all I see. 2 guesses for 2 words. Gaga Grumps says aloof it is. Gaga Grumps says GG Gremlins. Let's see those W's in the chat. Gaga Grumps says thanks for joining me to play Wordle. I will be back at 4 PM UK tomorrow for more Wordle with Gaga. Gaga Grumps says, do you do the daily Wordle? I post mine on my page and would love you to share your results.
A random star chosen by fate. Play a part, it's a live date. A Wordle with Gaga. A Wordle with Gaga. Ra-da-da. A Wordle with Gaga.
Grump says have a great evening, night, morning today everyone.